The chair at the end of Ezra Bell's Thanksgiving table had been empty since Normandy. Then he seated a German prisoner beside it, not a guest from town, not a neighbor, not a widow from the church, a German woman in a gray prison coat with a number stitched to her sleeve and a face that looked too tired to be dangerous. 1 year earlier, Ezra would have thrown her out of his house because in October of 1944, when the army bus first climbed the frozen road toward Bell's sheep ranch in eastern Idaho, Ezra was standing on the porch with his son's death telegram folded in his shirt pocket. The telegram was already soft from being opened too many times. The bus came slowly through the sagebrush valley, followed by a canvas-covered truck and 2 armed military police. The first snow had not settled yet, but the grass had gone silver with frost, and the Tetons stood white against a hard blue sky. Lieutenant Harold Gaines stepped down first. He was young, nervous, and carrying a clipboard like it might protect him. "Mr. Bell," he said, "the War Department appreciates your cooperation." Ezra did not move. Behind the lieutenant, 18 women began stepping off the bus. German women. Some wore Luftwaffe auxiliary skirts under borrowed coats. Some wore field hospital gray. A few had civilian shoes so worn that their stockings showed through the toes. They had been captured during the Allied push through Belgium and Western Germany. Telephone operators, clerks, nurses' aides, signal workers. Too few prison facilities were prepared for women. Too many farms had lost their men to the war. So the Army had made a cold calculation. Bell's Ranch had empty bunk space. Bell's Ranch needed labor. Bell's Ranch was far enough from any city that trouble would have to walk 30 miles before it found a newspaper. Ezra looked at the women, then back at the lieutenant. "My boy died fighting Germans," he said, "and now Washington wants me to feed them?" Lieutenant Gaines swallowed. "They are prisoners of war, sir. They remain under guard, but they are also under American protection." Ezra gave a bitter laugh. Protection. The word came out like rust. Marta Weiss was the last woman off the bus. She was 24, from Cologne, and had once known how to connect military telephone lines under shell fire without letting her hands shake. Now her hands would not stop shaking at all. She looked around and saw a world that did not fit anything she had been taught about America. No skyscrapers, no jazz clubs, no cartoon enemy with a cigar and a grin. Just a wind-scoured ranch yard, a red barn, stacks of hay, sheep pressing against a fence, and a man on a porch staring at her as if her face had stolen something from him. And in a way, she knew it had. Ruth Bell came out of the house behind her husband. She had gray pinned hair, flower on one sleeve, and the kind of grief that made every movement careful. She did not smile at the prisoners, but she looked at their shoes, their blue hands, their thin coats. Then she turned to the lieutenant. "The bunkhouse stove draws poorly," she said. "If they sleep there, they'll need more blankets." Ezra turned sharply. "Ruth?" She held his stare. "They're not sleeping in the snow." That was the first mercy. Not a warm one, not a soft one. Just the kind that kept human beings alive while everyone decided whether they deserved anything more. The women were marched to the old shearer's bunkhouse near the lambing shed. Barbed wire had been thrown around it in 2 quick loops. A guard shack stood by the gate. Inside were 18 iron cots, 2 wash basins, a cracked mirror, and a black stove that smoked whenever the wind changed. As the women set down their bundles, Sergeant Asa Pike filled the doorway. He had a square jaw, a holstered pistol, and no patience for translation. "You work," he said, pointing at the yard. "You eat. You run. You freeze. You fight. You answer to me." Most of the women stared blankly. Marta understood enough English to step forward. "We understand," she said. We will obey. Pike's eyes narrowed. So you're the one who speaks. A little. Then you tell them this isn't a hotel. Marta looked at the cots, the wire, the armed men, the Idaho wind pushing through the gaps in the boards. No, she said quietly. It is clear. At dawn, the bell rang before the sun reached the ridge. The German women came out stiff with cold, wrapped in whatever they owned. Ruth had left work trousers and wool shirts folded on a bench. Nothing matched. Everything smelled of cedar, smoke, and old ranch sweat. Ezra stood by the corral with a coffee cup in one hand. You'll be split into crews, he said. Kitchen, sheep pens, haying, fence line. You work honest, you'll get treated honest. You don't, you'll wish you had. Marta translated. Nobody argued. The first weeks were not cruel, but they were not kind either. The women scrubbed floors, hauled water, patched wool sacks, cleaned pens, and learned that sheep could be more stubborn than soldiers. Marta was sent with 2 other prisoners to mend fence in the north pasture, where the wire cut their palms and the cold made every staple feel like a nail through bone. A hired hand named Tom Calder showed them how to pull the wire tight without slicing their gloves open. He had a limp from a logging accident that had kept him out of uniform, and that limp made some men treat him like he had chosen safety. He did not take that bitterness out on the prisoners. He simply worked. When Marta's canteen ran dry, he handed her his. She hesitated. He said, "Water's not treason." It was the first time an American had spoken to her like a person instead of a problem. That night, she wrote in a little notebook she had hidden inside the lining of her coat. Today I learned that an enemy can hand you water without forgiving you. By December, the valley turned hard. The wind came down from the mountains with teeth. The bunkhouse stove could not hold heat past midnight, and the women slept in all their clothes, close enough to hear one another's shivering. Ruth heard it one night when she crossed the yard to check the milk cow. Not voices, not complaints, just the thin, helpless sound of bodies trying not to freeze. The next morning, 6 quilts appeared inside the bunkhouse door. No note, no explanation. Old wedding quilts, children's quilts. One blue quilt with a torn corner that Marta later learned had once belonged to Ezra and Ruth's son, Caleb. When she found that one, she folded it twice and carried it back to the ranch house. Ruth opened the door. Marta held the quilt out. "We cannot take this one," she said. Ruth looked at the blue squares, and for a moment her face changed so completely that Marta wished she had never touched it. "That was Caleb's," Ruth said. "I know, Mrs. Bell, we cannot." Ruth's hand closed over the edge of the cloth. Then she pushed it gently back toward Marta. "He isn't cold anymore." Marta did not know how to answer that, so she bowed her head and carried the quilt back across the yard like it was something holy. After that, the ranch changed by inches. Tom brought a lantern to the fence crew when the afternoon light failed early. In return, one of the German nurses mended a tear in his coat lining so neatly he could not find the seam. Ruth corrected Marta's English at the kitchen table while they peeled potatoes. Ezra still avoided the bunkhouse. He still looked away when the women laughed too loudly. But once, during a snow squall, he sent a wagon to bring them in from the upper pasture instead of making them walk. He called it common sense. Ruth called it what it was. Then spring came, and with it the letters. They arrived in a bundle through the Red Cross, months late and already smelling of damp paper. Marta received 2 from Cologne. The first was from her mother, written in November, after another bombing raid had broken the street where Marta had learned to ride a bicycle. Her father was missing. The church was gone. People slept in cellars and cooked soup from turnips and rumors. The second letter was shorter. Her mother wrote of names whispered in basements, camps in the east, trains that left full and returned empty. Stories so monstrous that good Germans had told themselves they must be enemy lies. Then one line stopped Marta breathing. If even half of this is true, my child, then what did we serve? The third message was not a letter. It was a Red Cross notice. Her mother had died during a raid in January. Across the bunkhouse, grief opened everywhere at once. Inga learned her brothers were dead in Russia. Hilda learned her husband had vanished near the Oder. Annalisa learned her family apartment existed only as an address on burned stone. But the worst thing was not what Germany had lost. It was what Germany had done. In April, Lieutenant Gaines returned with newspapers and military photographs from camps the Allies had liberated. He did not shout at the women. He did not need to. He laid the pictures on the dining room table. Bodies behind wire, faces hollowed beyond age, barracks full of people who looked less rescued than unearthed. Marta translated until her voice failed. Annalisa, who had worked as a nurse's aide, put both hands over her mouth and slid to the floor. Hilda kept saying no, as if the word could push history backward. One woman ran outside and vomited beside the pump. Ezra watched from the doorway. He had wanted to see guilt. For months he had imagined German guilt as something hard and clean, something he could hate without complication. But this was not clean. This was women discovering the country they had mourned was also a graveyard with uniforms. That night, Marta sat alone on the step of the bunkhouse with Caleb's blue quilt around her shoulders. Ezra crossed the yard to close the barn against the wind. He saw her there, and for once he did not turn away. "My son was 22, he said. Marta looked up. "My mother was 51, she answered. Neither of them said they were sorry, not yet. But the silence between them was no longer empty. It was holding both dead. By the summer of 1945, the war in Europe was over. By August, the war everywhere was over. In town, church bells rang, children waved flags. Men who had sons coming home stood taller than they had in years. Men like Ezra did not know where to put their hands. The German women remained at Bell's Ranch because no one in Washington seemed to know what to do with them quickly. They were prisoners after a war that had ended, workers in a country that did not want them, daughters of cities that no longer stood. Ruth began planning Thanksgiving in September, not because she was certain, because she was afraid she would lose her nerve. She took inventory of flour, sugar, dried apples, potatoes, and the last jars of cranberries she had traded for with a woman in town. She scrubbed the long table in the front room. She took Caleb's chair down from the wall where Ezra had hung it after the funeral telegram came. When Ezra saw it standing beside the table again, he stopped in the doorway. "No," he said. Ruth did not look up from polishing the wood. "I'm not replacing him. That chair is his." "Yes," she said, "and I'm tired of letting death be the only one allowed to sit in it." Ezra's face tightened. "You want them in here, at our table." "I want this house to remember what Caleb died for." "He died because of them." "He died because of a war that taught boys to kill strangers," Ruth said. "I won't let it teach us to hate them forever." Ezra left the room before she could see his eyes. For 3 days he would not speak of it. On the 4th, he came into the kitchen carrying 2 sacks of potatoes from the cellar. "If you're doing it," he said, "you'll need more than 1 pie." That was all the permission Ruth got. It was enough. The week before Thanksgiving, the kitchen became a place the war had not planned for. German prisoners and American ranch women stood shoulder to shoulder making bread, peeling apples, rolling dough, washing greens. Marta translated recipes. Inga shaped rolls the way her grandmother had shaped them in Bremen. Ruth taught Annalisa how to crimp pie crust with a fork. Sergeant Pike complained that it was foolish. Tom told him, "Then don't eat." Pike ate. On November 22nd, 1945, the sky over the valley was clear and brutal blue. The women came to the ranch house at noon, wearing their cleanest clothes. No one had told them where to sit. No one knew what to do with their hands. The table stretched across the front room, patched together from planks and sawhorses, covered with 3 tablecloths that did not match. There was turkey, potatoes, gravy, bread, beans, apple pie, and more food than most of the women had seen in one place since before the war. Ezra stood at the head of the table. His hand rested on the back of Caleb's chair. For a moment, he could not speak. Then he said, "When you came here, I thought the army had insulted my dead." The room went still. "I thought feeding you meant betraying my son. I thought mercy was something a man could run out of." His voice cracked and he gripped the chair harder. "But my wife reminded me that grief can be true without becoming a law for everyone else." He looked at the women one by one. "You did not kill Caleb, and I cannot bring him back by making you cold, hungry, or hated." Marta's eyes filled. Ezra pulled the chair out. "Miss Weiss," he said, rough and formal, "will you sit here?" The room seemed to stop breathing. Marta looked at Ruth first. Ruth nodded. Then Marta walked to the chair that had belonged to an American boy killed in France, and she sat down as if the wood might break beneath the weight of what it meant. No one applauded. No one made a speech. Tom passed the bread. Ruth carved the turkey because Ezra's hands were shaking too badly. Sergeant Pike stared at his plate for a long time, then pushed the gravy toward Inga without being asked. When Marta's plate reached her, she looked at the turkey, the potatoes, the slice of bread, the careful abundance offered by people who had every reason to refuse her, and she began to cry. Not loudly, not theatrically, just the kind of crying that comes when punishment would have been easier to understand than grace. One by one, the other women broke with her. Ezra sat down at the head of the table. For the first time since the telegram, he looked at Caleb's empty place and did not feel that the emptiness had won. December brought orders. The women would be moved east, then processed for return to Europe. Some were desperate to go home, even to ruins. Some had no home left. Some feared Germany. Some felt they owed Germany whatever strength remained in them. Ruth wrote letters to church committees, relief agencies, and every official whose address she could find. She could not stop the repatriations. She could not save everyone from the broken continent waiting across the ocean. But she could keep writing names. Marta returned to Europe in 1946. She found Cologne shattered, her old street unrecognizable, and her mother's grave marked by a wooden cross with the wrong spelling. She worked for a relief kitchen, then as a translator for occupation authorities. For 2 years, letters crossed the Atlantic between her and the Bells. In 1949, with sponsorship from Muth's church and paperwork that took longer than winter, Marta came back to Idaho. Not as a prisoner, as an immigrant. Tom Calder met her at the station with his hat in both hands, suddenly unable to remember a single thing he had practiced saying. She laughed for the first time in a way he had never heard during the war. They married the next spring. By 1966, Marta Calder had 3 children, a kitchen of her own, and a habit of saving every heel of bread. She still woke some nights from dreams of trains, sirens, and the paper tremble of her mother's last letter. But every Thanksgiving, she drove her family to the old Bell Ranch. Ruth was older then. Ezra's hair had gone white. Tom's limp had worsened. The bunkhouse had been turned back into storage, though if you looked closely, You could still see where the barbed wire had bitten the corner posts. On the mantel sat one photograph. Thanksgiving, 1945. Americans and German prisoners at one long table, a turkey half carved, a rancher trying not to cry, a young German woman sitting in a dead soldier's chair. Visitors sometimes asked why Ezra kept it there. He never gave them the whole story. He would only say, "That was the day we learned a chair can hold grief without belonging to it." Marta said it differently when she spoke at schools years later. She told children that forgiveness did not erase guilt, that kindness did not undo war, that a meal could not resurrect the dead or rebuild a city or clean a country's shame. But it could do one thing. It could stop hatred from inheriting the whole table. And sometimes that was where a new country began.